Welcome back to Joyful Adventure Audits. Today, we're exploring a fascinating piece of Victorian history right here in Balsall, Heath, Birmingham. I'm standing in front of an abandoned, cast-iron public urinal at the junction of Court Road and Edward Road. Can you imagine living in the 1800s and needing to spend a penny, as they used to say? Well, these ornate structures provided elegant relief for the Victorian gents of the era. With their decorative, classical designs, they allowed men to take care of business in a rather stylish way. This particular urinal sits outside the former Cannon Hill pub building. But sadly, like many of Birmingham's heritage toilets, it has fallen into disrepair and abandonment over the decades. What was once a private loo with sophistication is now run down and unclean. Across the city, these green-painted urinals used to be tucked away on side streets and under railway bridges. Unassuming structures that generations of Brummies walked and drove past without a second thought as they faded from memory. Most were shuttered years ago, demolished during redevelopment or lost to time. Though a few still remain as reminders of a bygone era of public amenities. One famous example is the so-called Temple of Relief in Vyse Street, Hockley. An apt name for these pissoirs that provided, well, relief for Victorian gents and many generations after. The ornate urinal that once stood in King Edward Place had to be carefully moved and re-erected elsewhere in 1986 when that entire street was demolished to make way for the ICC. It was one of only 5 public loos in Birmingham listed for preservation at the time due to their historical and architectural significance. A stark contrast to the sorry state of this one behind me. As we stroll past these relics of the past, it's fun to imagine the scenes they would have witnessed. Business persons rushing for a quick pee. Pub patrons relieving themselves after a pint. Even Peaky Blinders potentially utilizing their cobbled corners. Alas, Alabama-born Victorian evangelist Francis Willard likely wouldn't approve, having described such public urinals as golden showers ever ready to rain filthy putrescence in the streets. So while these pissoirs may have fallen out of fashion and function, they leave behind a unique window into public life in Birmingham during more refined, Victorian times. A reminder that even life's most basic bodily functions were once given an artistic flair. An ignoble end, perhaps, for structures designed with such dignity. But a fascinating footnote in our city's history, nonetheless. One that is slowly being forgotten among the rubble and dirt. I don't know about you, but I'd call that a pretty triumphant symbol of how Birmingham has re-relieved itself over the years. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.